There is this determined effort.
There are those in power who are doing their darndest
to keep Negroes from becoming registered voters.
To discourage people from voting and attacking our voting rights with surgical precision.
The one thing that people need to understand is when we talk about voter suppression, it's not new.
Voter suppression is a deliberate act to stop voters from being able to participate in the process of voting, casting a ballot, or to have that ballot counted.
Understand that the Ku Klux Klan came about because you had people of color that were now gaining economic and political strength. You then had the Klan coming in to scare them, to intimidate them, to put the fear in place. Well, folks, it hasn't stopped.
I wanted to stand in line because I wanted to make sure my vote was counted.
To use a single drop-off location in these massive counties is not only prejudicial, but it's dangerous.
Voting is part of our democracy, and I can't believe someone would stoop so low to try and destroy votes that have already been cast. That's terrible.
Two people camped outside this early voting site. One allegedly had a gun.
My crimes were over 40 years ago, and they still continue to hunt. I'm not allowed to vote this time. If I do, I'm in fear of retribution of being arrested or committing felony.
So many people fought for the 1965 Voting Rights Act. It was designed to open the doors so that people could vote.
And this will very soon prohibit any state from requiring the payment of money in order to exercise the right to vote.
States like Alabama had less than 2% black voter registration. Within 3 years of the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, you had black voter registration going up to almost 70% in many of the southern states. And all of a sudden, state legislatures started being differently looking. And they started having more people of color being elected to office. And of course, people were upset, but when a black president got elected, well, that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. We're not going to have that.
If you walk back to 2013, the United States Supreme Court decided the Holder case. Their decision there decided that there was no longer discrimination that existed in the United States. So the feeling of the Supreme Court at that point was that we have advanced so much as a nation that it is no longer necessary for the states that required pre-clearance of voting rights changes to occur. Within 2 hours of that decision, you had states in the South implementing very restrictive voting rights laws. For instance, North Carolina implemented voter identification law that requiring the driver's license or some type of identification that is approved by the state. Many say, well, that doesn't sound like it's very suppressive. Well, you know, if you don't drive, if you're in a community where you don't need to drive, it required people to get licenses, to have to pay to get the identification. What would be equivalent of a poll tax.
Since the 2012 elections, there are 2,000 less polling spots in this country.
There's so much that we're up against in 2020.
This morning, coronavirus gripping much of the United States.
The Proud Boys is a growing presence at rallies, some armed with guns.
Not for sale.
The U.S. Postal Service has slowed down the mail. And this is the other piece of voter suppression of what you're seeing in this particular election. If you're in Texas, where they have implemented the one drop box per county, so for Harris County, Texas, you would have 4.7 million people in one drop box. That's a form of voter suppression. Then you have the Republican Party in California coming up with fake drop boxes.
Right now in North Carolina, 5% or more of all African American vote by mail ballots are being discarded. One of the big reasons why they are challenging those ballots is what they call exact signature match. Now think about it. If you signed your signature 10 years ago, does it look the same today? No, of course not.
Go into the polls and watch very carefully.
But here's the ugliest intimidation tactic. The Republican National Committee announced that they are going to put 50,000 challengers at polling places. And we know that those polling places are not white polling places. They are targeting black and brown polling places. There's a lot of good news. You can affirmatively take steps to protect your vote.
If you get into a position, there's some issue with your registration, call 866-OUR-VOTE and ask the election protection people to help you out and give you some guidance. If there's early voting in your state, you need to exercise that early option. If you go to vote.org, they will tell you specifically the polling place where you're supposed to go and exercise your vote. That's huge.
People are voting, and I am so proud of Americans. I mean, we have never seen a turnout like this.
Let's cross this Edmund Pettus Bridge. We can get across it, get our vote on, and make America what we want it to be best reflective of us as a country.